The legends surrounding Rome's origins are dominated by tales of war and savagery, with a strong emphasis on heroic deeds. According to myth, Romulus and Remus, the twin sons of the war god Mars, were suckled by a she-wolf. As adults, they gathered a warrior band supporting themselves through raiding. The foundation of Rome was stained by fratricide when Romulus, in a fit of rage, killed his brother Remus, setting a tone of heroic warfare for Rome's early history. Throughout his life, Romulus remained a heroic war leader, justifying his right to rule through his conspicuous courage and prowess in battle. The majority of the tales of early Rome recounted such heroism in war, although the historical accuracy of these stories is uncertain. The Romans themselves did not begin to write their history until the end of the 3rd century BC, by which time Rome had already established its dominance in Italy. Traditionally, Rome's founding is dated to 753 BC, but archaeology reveals traces of settlements near the site dating back to the beginning of the last millennium BC. The merging of these villages into a single city, situated on easily defensible hills next to a natural crossing of the Tiber River, occurred in the 6th century BC. Rome was one of several Latin communities occupying the coastal plain west of the Apennines, a line of hills forming the spine of Italy. 6th century Rome may have been the largest of the Latin cities, but its power relative to others remains unclear. Early Roman warfare consisted primarily of small-scale raids and cattle rustling, with the occasional ritualized battle. Armies during this period were warrior bands led by an aristocrat, his kin, and dependents. These leaders were heroes who fought conspicuously, leading by personal example rather than formal command. The acquisition of booty was a major motivation, and disputes over its distribution were common. Rome's College of Priests, known as the Fetiales, oversaw the justice of disputes and regulated the scale and limits of war with neighboring communities. A major development in early Roman warfare was the adoption of the Hoplite Phalanx, likely occurring in the 6th century BC. Hoplite warfare, which originated in early 7th century Greece, transformed the nature of combat. A hoplite was a heavily protected spearman equipped with a bronze helmet, cuirass, greaves, and a large circular shield. They fought as a group, advancing in a densely packed phalanx, typically 8 ranks deep. Individual weapon skills took a back seat to maintaining the cohesion of the phalanx. Hoplite warfare brought about social change and the rise of the city-state, broadening combat participation beyond the aristocracy. Hoplites were drawn from those who could afford the equipment, and as cities prospered, this included a larger proportion of the population, primarily farmers. These citizen soldiers fought harder for the state as they had a direct interest in its preservation, and they gained increased political power. This marked the ideal of the citizen soldier, fighting out of civic duty rather than for pay, booty, or glory. The Chigi vase, a 7th century BC artwork, provides a rare depiction of hoplite phalanxes in battle, similar to the later Bayeux tapestry, where artists face the challenge of representing a deep formation in a 2-dimensional medium. Rome's political, social, and military reforms are attributed to Servius Tullius, who divided the population into classes based on property assessment. Each class was responsible for providing specific military equipment, ranging from a full hoplite panoply to just a sling. This system formed the basis of the Comitia Centuriata, the voting assembly where citizens elected consuls and declared wars. Originally, the assembly consisted of about 100 men per century, and Rome's potential to muster a phalanx of 4,000 men was indicative of the city's size and power. Rome's expulsion of the kings may have been part of wider political and social upheavals in the region during the late 6th century BC. One of the early conflicts of the Young Republic was the Battle of Lake Regillus in 496 BC, where Rome faced a Latin army, including supporters of the expelled Tarquin family. Livy and Dionysius, 2 of our main sources, considered this to be a battle between hoplite phalanxes, although their accounts also include heroic elements. Rome's military activity during this period consisted mostly of raiding or reacting to enemy raids, with the occasional pitched battle. Conflict varied in scale, from minor property destruction to full-scale confrontations. Warfare was waged by the entire populace under the elected magistrates or by individual clans following their allegiance to the aristocracy. Rome's rituals of war included the declaration of grievances and the formal hurling of a spear into enemy territory by the fetules, signifying the distinction between a state of war and peace. Rome's early military campaigns were often against neighboring cities such as Veii, located just 15 kilometers away. One notable episode involved the clan of the Phalanx, who offered to wage a private war against Veii, patrolling and raiding the enemy. Unfortunately, they were ambushed and wiped out during a cattle raid, with only one Fabius surviving to carry on the family name. This incident may have mirrored the last stand of the Spartans at Thermopylae, as recounted by later Roman writers. Rome's first major conquest was the capture of Veii in 396 BC after a long siege, for which Rome paid its citizen soldiers for the first time. Veii's territory was annexed and settled by Roman citizens, marking the beginning of Rome's expansion. The late 5th and 4th centuries BC saw increasingly bitter conflicts with more serious consequences for the losers. The coastal plain was under pressure from the expanding Sabellian tribes of the Apennines, while Gallic tribes pushed down from the north. In 390 BC, a raiding band of Gauls routed a Roman army on the banks of the river Allia, leading to the Gallic sack of Rome. The trauma of this event left a legacy of fear and hatred toward the northern barbarians. Despite the sack, Rome's damage was soon repaired, and the city continued its steady growth in power and size. Rome had a unique willingness to absorb outsiders, including slaves and entire Latin communities, into its citizen body. This increased citizen manpower and fostered military success, turning defeated enemies into allies who provided troops for future campaigns. Rome's network of allies strengthened over time, and Latin rebellions became less common. The last serious revolt in the 340 SBC failed to unite all Latin cities, and Rome's eventual victory was never in doubt. Rome's military manpower advantage allowed for larger and more sustained campaigns, and the word legion referred to the entire army of the Roman people. With the fall of the monarchy, the single levy was divided into two separate legions, each commanded by a consul. Rome experimented with different military leadership structures, including multiple tribunes with consular powers and, in times of crisis, a dictator who exercised supreme authority for a limited duration. The story of Lucius Quinctius Cincinnatus, called from his plough to become dictator and save Rome, is a cherished example of selfless devotion to the state. The importance of heavy infantry hoplites was such that even a dictator was not allowed to lead his army on horseback. The organization of the legions became more formal in the second half of the 4th century BC, with each legion commanded by 6 military tribunes. Rome's conflicts, such as the 3 Great Samnite Wars 343–290 BC, led to the adoption of the more flexible Manipular system, where the legion deployed in 3 lines of small, independent units called maniples. The Samnites were a significant opponent, and in 321 BC, they inflicted a humiliating defeat on the Romans at the Caudine Forks, forcing them to surrender and walk under a yoke of spears. Rome's response to this defeat demonstrated her determination. She renewed the struggle 5 years later. In 295 BC, the Romans achieved a great victory at the Battle of Sentinum, where one of the consuls, Publius Decius Mus, made a devotio, sacrificing himself and the enemy armies to the gods in return for victory. Rome's aristocracy still retained some traces of primitive heroic culture, as evidenced by Decius Mus's actions mirroring those of his father in an earlier battle against Latin rebels. By the beginning of the 3rd century BC, Rome had firmly established its dominance in Italy, controlling a large territory and citizen population. Roman warfare had evolved from the ritual battles and raids of aristocratic warrior bands to larger-scale, state-controlled campaigns. Rome's allies were tied to her by strong bonds, sharing in the successes and benefits of conquest, and forming a cohesive network that would be tested in the major conflicts against foreign powers in the coming centuries. Rome's rise from a small settlement to a dominant power in Italy had a profound impact on warfare. The Roman adoption of the Hoplite Phalanx and the development of the Manipular legion demonstrated their military innovation and adaptability. Rome's expansion and integration of defeated enemies into their system resulted in a steady increase in citizen manpower, ensuring a consistent supply of troops for their campaigns. Rome's warfare evolved from small-scale raids to larger, more concerted campaigns, reflecting the growing sophistication of their military organization and tactics. The network of allies that Rome cultivated played a crucial role in their success, providing both manpower and stability. Rome's ability to absorb defeated enemies and share the spoils of war fostered loyalty and strengthened their position. Rome's military might became a key factor in their dominance, allowing them to force permanent alliances or destroy those who opposed them. The constructive aspect of Roman warfare, where defeated enemies became allies and shared in the benefits of conquest, was a significant part of their imperial strategy. Rome's legacy in warfare extended beyond Italy as they continued their expansion and confronted foreign powers in the following centuries. In conclusion, Rome's rise to power in Italy showcases their military innovation, strategic alliances, and the interplay between destruction and construction in warfare. Rome's legacy influenced ancient and future generations, shaping military thinking and strategy for centuries to come. The evolution of Rome's military tactics, the integration of allies, and the transformation from a small settlement to a dominant power offer valuable insights into the complexities of ancient warfare and the foundations of empire building.